The security alarm screamed through the mansion at 2 in the morning, and Chioma Akafer's first thought was that she'd triggered it somehow. She froze in the hallway, her phone flashlight trembling in her hand, illuminating the abstract paintings that lined the corridor. Then she heard the crash of breaking glass from somewhere below, and her blood turned to ice. "Miss Akafer." The voice crackled through the intercom speaker above her head, and for once it didn't have that measured, almost robotic quality she'd grown accustomed to over the past 3 weeks. Lee Jae-hyun sounded different, urgent, almost human. "Someone has breached the compound. I need you to go to the library immediately. Lock the door. Do not open it for anyone except security. Do you understand?" "I understand," Chioma whispered, but her feet wouldn't move. 3 weeks. She'd been living in this sprawling Seoul mansion for 3 weeks as a live-in translator for Korea's most reclusive tech mogul, and this was the first time she'd heard actual emotion in his voice. "Chioma." He'd never used her first name before. "Move, now." That got her running. But let's rewind. Let's go back to the beginning, to the day Chioma arrived at this fortress of glass and steel with her 2 suitcases and a head full of questions. The job posting had been almost too good to be true. Live-in translator for a private tech company. Fluency in Korean, English, and at least 2 other languages required. Compensation that made her nearly choke on her coffee when she read it. The interview had been conducted entirely via video call with HR representatives who seemed almost apologetic about the arrangement. "Mr. Lee is very private," the woman had explained, adjusting her glasses nervously. "He conducts all his business remotely. You'll be translating his video conferences, correspondence, and occasionally entertaining international guests on his behalf. But you likely won't interact with Mr. Lee directly very often. Aromantic, they say," her friend Adiz had whispered over video chat the night before Chioma left Lagos. "Girl, you're about to work for a robot in a human suit. These tech billionaires, they're all the same. No emotions, just algorithms." Chioma had laughed it off then. Now, standing in the cavernous entrance hall of the Lee estate, she wasn't so sure Adiz had been wrong. The first week passed in a blur of video conferences. Chioma would sit in a designated office, translating as Lee Jae-hyun negotiated with German manufacturers, courted Japanese investors, and discussed AI ethics with American academics. She never saw him. His side of the screen always showed an empty office with a voice modulator distorting his words slightly. Professional, distant, efficient. But there were oddities, small things that accumulated like snowflakes before an avalanche. On her 3rd day, Chioma had mentioned to Adiz during their evening call that she was craving her mother's egusi soup. Just a passing comment, homesickness bleeding through. The next morning, she'd found a covered dish outside her door with a note in perfect Igbo script. "Recipe from internet. Apologies if incorrect." The soup had been surprisingly good, if a bit too heavy on the palm oil. On day 5, she'd been cold during a late-night translation session. She'd rubbed her arms, shivering. Within minutes, the temperature in her quarters had adjusted upward by exactly 3 degrees. On day 8, she'd finished a novel and set it on her nightstand with a sigh, sad to see the story end. The next day, 3 books by the same author appeared in her room. Maybe the staff are just really attentive, she'd told herself, but the staff were minimal. A housekeeper who came twice a week. A chef who prepared meals and left them in warming drawers. Security guards who patrolled the perimeter but never entered the main house. No one who should have known these intimate details of her preferences. It was on day 15 that Chioma started noticing the cameras. Oh, she'd known about security cameras in general. Any estate like this would have them. But these were different. Small, discreet, positioned in corners of rooms where they could capture everything. She counted 7 in her bedroom alone. 11 in the sitting room she'd claimed as her own. The cameras were everywhere except the bathroom, and she'd checked that space 3 times to be absolutely sure. "You're being paranoid," she muttered to herself, but the prickle on the back of her neck disagreed. On day 18, she tested a theory. During her evening routine, she'd looked directly at one of the cameras and said clearly, "I really miss drinking Zobo. Haven't had it since Lagos." The next morning, a pitcher of hibiscus tea sat on her breakfast tray. Her hands had shaken as she'd poured a glass. Someone was watching, really watching. Not just monitoring for security, but observing, learning, responding. That night, she'd called Adiz. "Girl, maybe he's into you," Adiz had said, half joking. "The man won't even be in the same room as me. He's supposedly aromantic. Everyone says so." "Then why does he know you prefer your tea with ginger? Why does he care if you're cold?" Chioma hadn't had an answer. On day 20, she'd decided to find out. The mansion was a maze of corridors, each one identical with its minimalist decor and soft lighting. Chioma had been told the West Wing was off-limits, Mr. Lee's private domain, but she'd never been explicitly forbidden from the North Wing. That's where she'd been heading when she took a wrong turn and found herself in front of an unmarked door. It was unlocked. The office beyond was dimly lit, dominated by a curved desk supporting 6 large monitors. But it was what was on those monitors that made Chioma's breath catch in her throat. On every screen, one monitor showed her bedroom, currently empty, her book still open on the nightstand. Another showed the kitchen at an angle that captured the small table where she ate breakfast. A third displayed the sitting room where she spent her evenings. A fourth showed the garden path where she took morning walks. But the center monitor, the largest one, showed something else entirely. A document, a file, about her. Chioma stepped closer, her heart hammering, and read. Subject, Chioma Akafer. Observations and notes. Below, in meticulous detail, someone had cataloged everything. Her routine, her preferences, the way she hummed while cooking, how she tucked her hair behind her right ear when concentrating, her habit of speaking Igbo to herself when frustrated, what made her laugh, what made her cry during sad movies. There were notes in Korean, in English, and yes, in Igbo, handwritten observations in the margins. She smiled for 7 seconds after tasting the soup. Success. Temperature adjustment noted and appreciated. She prefers Chimamanda Adichie to Chinua Achebe. Remember this. Oh my God, Chioma whispered. That's when the security alarm started screaming. So now we return to the present moment, with Chioma running through corridors as the alarm wailed, and somewhere below, the sound of shouting in Korean echoed through the mansion. The library door was heavy oak, and she slammed it shut, turning the lock with shaking fingers. The room was windowless, lined floor to ceiling with books in a dozen languages. She pressed her back against the door, trying to slow her breathing. The intercom crackled. Chioma, are you secure? Yes, she managed. What's happening? Corporate espionage, 3 intruders, possibly more. They're after the prototype for my new AI system. Security is en route, but they're 8 minutes out. 8 minutes? I need you to stay exactly where you are. Do not open this door. Where are you? The question burst out before she could stop it. Silence. Then quietly, in my office. The one with all the monitors. Her voice shook with more than just fear now. The one where you've been watching me for 3 weeks. The silence stretched longer this time. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed again, stripped of pretense. Raw. Yes. Why? She didn't know why she was asking this now, with intruders in the house, but she needed to know. Because I couldn't look away. The confession came through the speaker like a wound opening. Because you walked into my sterile world and brought color with you. Because I told myself I was incapable of connection, and then you laughed at something during a conference call, and I realized I'd been lying to myself for 10 years. Chioma slid down to sit with her back against the door, phone clutched in one hand. You learned Igbo. You cooked Nigerian food. You read my favorite authors. I learned everything about you, your language, your culture, your expressions. I memorized the way your voice lifts when you're happy. I know you talk to yourself in Igbo when you think no one's listening. I know you're afraid of thunderstorms, but you pretend you're not. I know everything, Chioma, and I know that makes me a monster, but I couldn't stop. Everyone says you're aromantic. A bitter laugh crackled through the speaker. I let them think that. It was easier than admitting the truth, that I'm terrified of letting anyone close enough to destroy me again. My father's business partner was someone he trusted, someone he loved like a brother. That man smiled while he embezzled everything, while he destroyed my family's company, while my father had his first heart attack from the stress. I was 22. I swore I'd never let anyone inside my walls again. So you built a fortress. Yes. And then I hired you, and you scaled the walls without even trying. A crash from somewhere in the house made them both go silent. Chioma heard footsteps, heavy boots on marble floors, voices speaking in Korean, harsh and demanding. They're in the East Wing, Lee Jae-hyun said, and now his voice had an edge of something dark. Looking for my server room. Where are you? North Wing, my office. A pause. Where you were 20 minutes ago. Are you safe? The office is secure, steel reinforced. They'd need explosives to get through, but Chioma, his voice dropped, if they find you first. I'm locked in, you said to stay here. Yes, stay there, 8 minutes, security will handle this. But the universe had other plans. The library door handle rattled, once, twice. Then a voice in accented Korean, someone's in here. Chioma's hand flew to her mouth to stifle a gasp. Chioma, Lee Jae-hyun's voice through the intercom was sharp with fear, real, visceral fear. Are they at the library? She couldn't answer, couldn't make a sound. The door shuddered as someone kicked it. Once, twice. I'm coming to you, Lee Jae-hyun said, and she heard movement through the speaker, rapid footsteps. Hold on. No, she whispered. Stay where you're safe. But the intercom had gone silent. The third kick splintered wood around the lock. Chioma scrambled backward, looking for anything she could use as a weapon. She grabbed a heavy brass bookend shaped like a lion. The door burst open. Two men in dark clothing filled the doorway. One held a crowbar, the other had a gun. Who are you? The one with the gun demanded in Korean. Chioma's language skills meant she understood every word, but she played dumb, responding in English. I don't understand. Please, I'm just the translator. I don't know anything. Translator. The men exchanged glances. The one with the crowbar stepped forward. Where is Lee Jae-hyun? I've never even met him. I work remotely. Please, I'm not involved in whatever this is. The man grabbed her arm. Then you're our leverage. Move. That's when Lee Jae-hyun appeared in the doorway behind them. Chioma had never seen him before. She'd imagined, of course. Pictured a middle-aged man, maybe, soft from years spent behind screens, pale from never going outside. The reality stole her breath even in the midst of terror. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 32, 33, sharp-featured behind designer glasses that did nothing to soften the intensity of his gaze. Black hair slightly disheveled, tall, and moving with a controlled fury that reminded her of a panther she'd once seen at the Lagos Zoo right before feeding time. Let her go. His voice was quiet, deadly quiet. The man with the gun swung toward him. Lee Jae-hyun. Perfect. Tell us where the prototype is or she gets hurt. Lee Jae-hyun's eyes, dark and burning, locked on Chioma for 1 second. In that second, she saw everything he'd never said through the intercom. The obsession, the longing, the fear of losing. Something he'd never actually had. Then his gaze shifted to the man holding her arm, and something in his expression made the man flinch. You have 3 seconds to remove your hand from her, Lee Jae-hyun said. 1. You're not in a position to make demands. 2. The man tightened his grip, and Chioma winced. Lee Jae-hyun didn't say 3. He moved. Later, Chioma wouldn't be able to fully describe what happened. One moment Lee Jae-hyun was in the doorway. The next, he was a blur of controlled violence. The man with the gun went down first, Lee Jae-hyun's hand striking his wrist with precision that sent the weapon skittering across the floor. The crowbar swung toward Lee Jae-hyun's head, but he ducked under it, driving his shoulder into the second man's chest with enough force to send them both crashing into a bookshelf. The man holding Chioma released her, reaching for something in his jacket. Chioma didn't think. She swung the brass bookend as hard as she could. It connected with his temple with a sickening thud, and he dropped. Lee Jae-hyun was on his feet, breathing hard, standing over the 2 men he'd disabled in under 30 seconds. His glasses were cracked. His knuckles were bleeding. And when he turned to look at Chioma, the careful mask he'd worn for years was completely shattered. Are you hurt? His hands hovered near her shoulders, not quite touching, as if he was afraid he'd break her. I'm fine, you're bleeding. I don't care, his voice cracked. When he grabbed you, God, Chioma, I've never felt anything like that. It was like someone reached into my chest and squeezed my heart until I couldn't breathe. All I could think was that I'd watched you for weeks, learned everything about you, and I'd never even spoken to you face to face, and if something happened to you. Sirens wailed in the distance, security finally arriving. Chioma reached up and carefully removed his broken glasses. His eyes were even more intense without them. You've been watching me. Yes. Learning everything about me. Yes. Without my knowledge or consent. Yes. He didn't look away, didn't make excuses. I should apologize, I should tell you I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry I know you. I'm only sorry I was too much of a coward to let you know me. That's not an apology. No, it's not. Security burst into the library, 5 men in tactical gear who quickly secured the 3 intruders. A woman in a sharp suit approached Lee Jae-hyun, but he waved her away, his eyes never leaving Chioma. Mr. Lee, we need to secure the premises, take statements. Later. His voice held an edge that made the woman step back. Give us the room. They left, taking the unconscious intruders with them. The library door closed, leaving Chioma and Lee Jae-hyun alone in the wreckage. Show me, Chioma said. What? Your office, the monitors, all of it. If you've seen everything about me, then I want to see what you see. He studied her face, looking for something. Then he nodded. The walk to the north wing felt longer than it should have. Lee Jae-hyun led her through corridors she'd never explored, past rooms she'd never entered. When they reached his office, he held the door open, an invitation and a confession. The monitors were still on, still showing feeds of her empty bedroom, the kitchen, the garden. The document about her was still displayed on the center screen, a catalog of obsession written in 3 languages. Chioma walked to the desk, reading the notes in the margins. Some were clinical observations, others were painfully personal. She cried during the scene where the protagonist's mother dies. She misses her family. How do I help without revealing I know? She sang today. I've never heard anything so beautiful. I played it back 17 times. I disabled the audio in your bedroom and bathroom on day 2, Lee Jae-hyun said quietly from behind her. Some lines even I wouldn't cross. How considerate. The sarcasm was automatic, but there was no heat in it. Chioma was too busy processing the sheer volume of information, the time and effort that had gone into understanding her. You learned Igbo in 3 weeks. I had a good reason. She turned to face him. He'd moved closer but maintained careful distance, as if afraid she'd bolt. There was blood on his shirt from his split knuckles. His hair was a mess. He looked nothing like the cold tech mogul everyone whispered about and everything like a man barely holding himself together. Why me? Chioma asked. You could have hired anyone. Why did you choose me specifically, and why did you let this happen to you? Lee Jae-hyun was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I didn't choose you specifically. Your resume was the most qualified. But then you arrived and I watched you unpack on your first day through the bedroom camera. You were singing, something in Igbo. You looked so vibrant, so alive in this sterile house I'd built. And you smiled at the room like you were greeting it, like you had the capacity to find joy anywhere. He moved to the window, looking out at the garden illuminated by security lights. I told myself I was just curious, just observing. But every day I learned something new, and every day I wanted to know more. The way you speak to your friend Adiz, so open and laughing. How you dance when you think no one's watching. Your kindness to the staff even though they barely interact with you. You leave thank you notes, Chioma. Who does that? Normal people. Not in my world. He turned back to her. In my world, people are transactions. But you're not, you're real. And I became addicted to that reality. To watching someone who hadn't been corrupted by wealth or power or betrayal. Someone who could still find joy in hibiscus tea and good books and stupid cat videos on her phone at midnight. Chioma's breath caught. You watched those too. I watched everything. And I know that's wrong. I know I violated your privacy in ways that should make you run from this house and never look back. I know I'm telling you things that sound like the ravings of a stalker, and maybe that's what I am. But when that man put his hands on you tonight, Chioma, I stopped caring about right or wrong. I only cared about keeping you safe. You fought for me. She said it softly, still processing. Everyone says you're aromantic, emotionless, but you lost control completely when I was threatened. I've been lying. The confession seemed to cost him. To the world, to myself. I told everyone I was aromantic because it was easier than admitting I was broken, easier than risking being destroyed again. But then you happened, and all my careful lies fell apart. Chioma moved closer to him, watching his body tense like he expected her to strike him. Instead, she reached out and took his injured hand, examining the split knuckles. These need to be cleaned. Chioma, I should be furious with you. She met his eyes. I should be calling the police, filing restraining orders, demanding you be investigated for stalking. And part of me is angry. The cameras, the monitoring, the violation of my privacy, it's all absolutely unacceptable. I know. But she held up a hand when he started to speak. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't noticed. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't tested you, hadn't started performing slightly for those cameras once I knew they were there. When I mentioned the Zobo, I was checking if my suspicions were correct. When I talked about being cold, I wanted to see if you'd respond. And you did, every time. You knew, not everything, not the extent of it, but I knew someone was paying very close attention, and I knew it had to be you. She tightened her grip on his hand when he tried to pull away. You learned my language, Lee Jae-hyun. You studied my culture. You noticed things about me that my own family doesn't notice. That's either the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced or the most flattering. I haven't decided which yet. You should be terrified. You should leave. Maybe, but I'm not. She paused, gathering her thoughts. My whole life, people have seen the surface, the competent translator, the intelligent employee, the dutiful daughter. But you, through those cameras. You saw me, the real me, the one who dances badly and sings off-key and cries at movies and talks to herself. And instead of being bored or dismissive, you wanted more. I wanted everything, he said hoarsely. That's what scares me because I think, she took a shaky breath, I think I might want to let you have it, but not like this, not through cameras and distance and walls. Then how? Face to face, real conversations. Actual dates where we sit across from each other and you risk letting me see you the way you've seen me. No more hiding, Lee Jae-hyun. If you want something real, you have to let me in, all the way in. He stared at her like she was offering him something he'd never dared dream of. I don't know how to do that. Neither do I, but we can learn, together, starting with you disabling every camera in my quarters. Done. Consider it done right now. And therapy. You need to talk to someone about the betrayal, the trust issues, all of it. I'll start tomorrow. And normal human interaction, dinner face to face, walks in the garden, actually being in the same room without monitoring equipment between us. Yes, anything, Chioma, anything you want. She smiled slightly. What I want is for you to take a leap of faith, to trust that I'm choosing to stay. Not because you've manipulated me or trapped me, but because despite everything, despite the cameras and the obsession and the complete violation of normal boundaries, I see you too. The man who fights his nature to try to care for someone. The man who learned an entire language just to understand me better. The man who completely lost control when I was threatened because the thought of me being hurt was unbearable. It was unbearable, he whispered. It still is. Then let's make a deal. You come out from behind your walls and I'll try to forgive the cameras. We start over, but honestly this time. I want to know the man behind the monitors. The real Lee Jae-hyun, not the facade you show the world and not the obsessed watcher in the dark. Just you. He raised his uninjured hand slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently touched her face. His fingers trembled. I'm not a good man, Chioma. I'm controlling and possessive, and I've proven I don't understand boundaries. You deserve so much better. Let me decide what I deserve. She covered his hand with hers, holding it against her cheek. But if we do this, really do this, you have to promise me something. Anything. No more secrets, no more watching from the shadows. If you want to know something about me, you ask. If I'm doing something that makes you feel something, you tell me to my face. We do this in the light or we don't do it at all. Deal. He said it immediately, without hesitation. Then quieter, I'm terrified. Good, so am I, that means this is real. Dawn was breaking over Seoul when they finally left his office. Lee Jae-hyun spent an hour systematically disabling and removing every camera from Chioma's quarters, his fingers flying over keyboards and security panels while she watched. When the last monitor went dark, he turned to her. There, you're free, from the surveillance, from the job if you want it. I'll provide references, compensation, whatever you need. You don't have to stay. I know. Chioma walked to where he stood, bathed in the morning light streaming through the windows. But I'm choosing to, for now. We'll see where this goes. Where what goes? This, she gestured between them. Whatever this is, this strange, damaged, probably slightly toxic, but somehow also beautiful thing we're building. We'll give it a chance, a real chance. For the first time since she'd met him, Lee Jae-hyun smiled. It was tentative and unpracticed, like he'd forgotten how, but it was real. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Then we'll learn together, starting with breakfast. A real breakfast, at a real table, with two people who are choosing to be in each other's company. They sat in the garden as the sun rose fully, awkward and uncertain and more honest than either had been in years. Lee Jae-hyun was stiff and formal, unsure how to navigate conversation without a screen between them. Chioma found herself nervous in ways she hadn't been when she'd known he was watching, because now he was here, present, vulnerable. Tell me something true, she said, pouring tea for both of them. Something you haven't observed through a camera. He considered this, his fingers drumming on the table. I haven't left this estate in 4 years, not once. The thought of being in public spaces, around people I can't vet or control, it paralyzes me. But this morning, watching the sunrise with you, I thought maybe I could try, if you were with me. That's a start. She reached across the table and took his hand. I'll make you a deal. You face the outside world with me, and I'll face this strange new dynamic with you. We'll both be terrified together. Together, he repeated, like the word was foreign but wonderful. Together. And if you've made it this far in the story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us what you think about Chioma's choice. Would you have stayed or run? And smash that like button if you want to see more stories about unexpected romance and second chances. Because that's what this was, really. A second chance for a man who'd forgotten how to be human, offered by a woman brave enough to see past the surveillance cameras to the lonely soul behind them. It wouldn't be easy. There would be difficult conversations ahead, boundaries to establish, therapy sessions to attend, and trust to build from the ground up. But as Chioma sat in the morning light, watching Lee Jae-hyun slowly, carefully learn how to smile without fear, she thought maybe, just maybe, this strange beginning could lead to something extraordinary. After all, the best love stories are the ones where two people choose each other despite every reason not to. Where they see the darkness and decide to bring light anyway. Where they take broken pieces and build something new. And sometimes, those stories start in the most unexpected ways, in the glow of security monitors and the quiet confession of someone who learned to see another person truly, even if he did it all wrong. Together, they would learn to do it right.